Okay, I think we'll make a start. Welcome everyone. This is the first of two sessions from St John's College, Cambridge, specifically looking at supporting international applicants. And I'm joined by Matthias. So Matthias, I'll just hand straight over to you if you want to get going with the session.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to this international audience today about our courses, about our education, and also how the admission system works. So my name is Matthias. I'm a mathematician in the college. So I actually really teach mathematics. I do research in mathematics, but I have various roles in the college. And one role I also have in the college is that I'm the director of scholarships and international programs. So I, also talk to schools internationally. I run various scholarship and bursary schemes also for international students. So we can talk about this a little bit later. So what I want to do today really, so for 15 minutes, I will sort of talk a little bit about how our education works, what is important for the admissions process, what is important for your students in the admissions process. And then after 15 or 20 minutes, we will respond to your questions. So I myself came to Cambridge as an international student many years ago. And I first studied at a different university, and therefore I can easily sort of compare, of course, the experience I had there and the experience that I had at Cambridge. And what really struck me when I came to Cambridge was they were really interested in my views. I think the other university I was before, was sort of typical German university where, you get a lot of information, you memorize it, and you try to repeat it in exams. And when I came to Cambridge, for the first time, I had really the feeling they were not interested in me memorizing stuff. They were really interested in developing my own views, developing insight, me developing understanding. And they really were interested in my views. And, that was new to me. And this is actually very important when you advise your students who are interested in Cambridge, because they really need to know this, because that's, of course, exactly what we want to see in the admissions process. We don't want to see sort of the desire of the students to just memorize a lot of stuff. We want to see the desire that they really want to think for themselves, and develop this sort of insight. And everything in the admissions process, every element is really centered around this. And, personal statement, references to, and of course, interviews and the tests too. So, and we'll come back to this later on. And, how do we really do this? That, we can really sort of concentrate on developing the students' ideas and understanding. And, that's really something else that struck me when I came here. You're just so extremely close to your teachers. You know your teacher, you're being taught in group size to, maybe even world famous professors sit down with you and, two students at a time and go through very fundamental ideas. And again, that was very special, and, can learn so much from the experience of these people. But even more importantly, you're just really close to your professors. That at all other universities, if I were to ask my colleagues at other universities, do you know your undergraduate students? They would say, of course not. I mean, universities normally have they have no structure for professors or lecturers to even know their undergraduate students. I mean, you lecture in front of 250 and you never get to know really your students. But at Cambridge, as a professor or lecturer, you really get to know your students, and through the supervision system, but also through various support roles in the college. So I'm, for example, the director of studies in mathematics, and obviously, I play already a big role in the admissions process together with my colleagues in mathematics. And so we really sort of meet the students, we get to know them in the admissions process already. Then they come here, we teach them. And, this relationship between the students and your teachers is not just, whilst the students are at college, it really carries on after they've graduated. Even long after graduation, I'm in touch with my students and so on. So that was something else that really struck me. And again, your students who apply to us, they need to know this. They need to know that, our way of teaching is really through communication and this small group teaching, and you really interact. So when later on, you ask us what is actually important, how do I prepare? Well, this interaction, that's exactly what you want to see, the ability to interact with your professor and to really discuss, your fundamental ideas. Something else that struck me, and that was really the intercollegiate nature of colleges. As you know, Cambridge is a collegiate university, and you don't just join your faculty as in most other universities. You would just join your faculty, and if you're a mathematician, then faculty of mathematics will do everything for you, the lectures, small group teaching, and exams, and so on. Cambridge, you don't just join your faculty, you also join a college, and the colleges are interdisciplinary institutions. They're small institutions, and that's exactly where these personal relationships are happening. That's exactly where you're closest to your teachers. The colleges are responsible for the supervision, say small groups teaching, for example, director of studies, your tutors, and so on. They will mainly be from your college. And colleges are interdisciplinary institutions, and that's when I came to Cambridge, I then really noticed that within the college, had access to students from across the board or professors across the board. I was, as a mathematician, I joined a philosophy club, and I did all sorts of things that at other universities before, I simply didn't feel I had access to because they were faculty based. So this intercollegiate nature of the colleges, it's also a really, really important point. And again, in terms of admissions, when we come to this, you have to realize that it's actually the colleges that really run the admissions process. So, the interviews will be done by the college you apply to. And it's really, the admissions office and the professors and lecturers in your subjects, in your college, that, basically decide on the application. Something else that is extremely important about Cambridge is that a Cambridge course will deliver a huge breadth first. All our courses really start, first with the breadth, and then, you specialize. And it's really important to us, and that really applies to all our courses. If you want to do engineering, lots of other universities will offer you 20 different engineering courses, and they will want you to fix your stream at the very beginning. At Cambridge, we have only one engineering course. I mean, this course, in what we call the part one, you will be trained as a really general engineer first with all the aspects of engineering. So what is very important to us is that, you get the breadth first. And this is important for various reasons. So if I look at myself, I'm a, rather broad mathematician. I've worked in particle physics, in algebra, in finance, numerical analysis. And, these are very different fields in mathematics. And, that's only possible because I managed to gain exactly this breadth. And then, if you have the breadth, you can, work yourself easily in all various areas in your subject. But if you specialize too early, then, you will always remain too narrow. And at a later stage, if your interests change, if you want to develop in other direction, it's just very difficult to do that. So that's why all our courses deliver this breadth first. And just to give you another example, if you're interested in politics, we've got, say, one entry route into politics is a course called HSBS, Human, Social, and Political Sciences. And again, firstly, there's a huge breadth. I mean, you will be trained within, sociology, anthropology, even archaeology, and of course, politics. And then only in your part two, you specialize. And I think here, we are different to, most other UK universities to deliver really this breadth. So our course system is called a tripos system, and that's really what it means. Within the tripos system, there are parts 1, 2, and 3, and the part 1 always deliver this breadth, and then you specialize, and there's actually quite a lot of flexibility. You could, you could combine, parts from different courses, from different subjects. You could even do more than one part two. So I've had, a number of students that did part one maths, part two maths, and then part two business, for example. Actually, a very common combination. Or I had students that did part one mathematics and then part two economics. Again, quite a common combination. So those who really want to go into the very mathematical areas in in economics, that might be exactly the right sort of structure for them. And I guess the beauty of this is that you don't actually really need to know this when you apply to us. You really apply for, the course where you want to get the breadth, and then you develop from there. And our system really allows a lot of space for the development. So, again, this is very important to know when you apply to us, because of course the course has to be the starting point. The course has to be right, has to match your passions. But I've seen so many students coming in with, very, very clear idea. I want to do, I don't know, aerospace engineering. And then, 4 years later, they don't come anywhere near aerospace engineering, because once they see the breadth, they have developed in all sorts of exciting directions they didn't even know they existed before. And just, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had a foundation dinner when I sat next to an engineer, and he told me exactly that. And because when I go out to schools, I always promote the breadth and then the space for development. And it was nice to hear that students said exactly that. So that was exactly the example I just gave. He said he came to us, wanting to do aerospace engineering, and he really enjoyed that we give the breadth first, because now he's actually going into AI or that sort of area. And at that time, he didn't really know much about it, and it was really, the course giving the breadth first, showing the opportunities that gave him sort of this, space for development. Yeah, so very important. So let's think a little bit about sort of the admissions and how what I've just said sort of relates to the admissions process. Obviously, there are various factors to the admissions process. There's school reference, there's personal statement, there are qualifications, obviously, and there are the interviews. And obviously, the students who consider us, they need to have the level to, our courses are at the highest possible level. They need to have the level. They need to have the grades that we require as of the minimum. They need to satisfy. And obviously, you as a school, you will have to confirm that they are working at that level. And we want to see this in the reference, that you really tell us that they are working at that level we require. But what we sort of really want to see is exactly, what I said earlier, the ability to think for themselves, to develop insight, really sort of the understanding side and the desire to understand. So let me give you another example. Say if I have somebody in front of me who says he wants to do, say, physics or maths or physics, and then I could ask him, a good starting point to, for a conversation would be, tell me, what is energy? And I wouldn't say, how do you calculate the energy in that system? I know that he can do that, because obviously, school exams and national exams, whatever, that's exactly what the exams do. And obviously, we know they get good grades, so they can do this. But, I'm more interested that they can actually really sort of think about this concept. And very interestingly, if I ask candidates or even at open days, tell me, what is energy? And then very often people tell me, oh, that's an interesting question. I've never thought about that. And, here's already exactly the problem. They want to be, say, a physicist. And for years, they have been working in physics and mathematics and chemistry and biology, and have calculated energy, using all sorts of formulae, but they've never thought about it themselves. They've never thought, what is it actually? And that's what I want them to do, to sort of think beyond, and not just sort of memorize what you tell them at school. They should also sort of question it and go beyond it. And they can go to the internet and say, well, what is energy? And they, will find an absolute superhero in mathematics, Emmy Noether, who taught us in the 1930s what energy really is and where it comes from. And, her work is absolutely fascinating. And that's really how your students can develop the passion. And then these are real passions. They did some research into it, they look at themselves. And what is most important is that they really start discussing it with others, and do not just sort of read it in a book and then declare in the personal statement, that's a passion of mine. It has to be an active passion. And so that's what we obviously call the super curriculars, to sort of think beyond, just sort of the curriculum, and based on their own initiative, look into it sort of more deeply, and then obviously, also discuss with others. And if you ask me, what do we want to see at interview? Well, I said it earlier already. That's exactly what we want to see at interview. And sometimes I come out of an interview and I think, wow, this candidate, has a real passion, and he or she can really back it up, but can also engage in a conversation, and that's really what we want to see. And here I should perhaps mention that certainly for now, our interviews are all online still, and what is actually nice about the online interviews is that we can focus a lot more on this understanding. We are not distracted by sort of a blank piece of paper that lies in front of the candidate, and the candidate is just hiding behind some arithmetic he or she is doing on this paper. But we can, actually focus really on discussions. Even in a subject like mine in mathematics, we can focus on discussion, and they're more relaxed doing this in this online environment, rather than, as I said, sitting in front of us and just trying to do technical stuff. I've talked a lot already, and it's already 20 minutes. Perhaps we pause here and see whether there are any questions or comments.
Thank you so much, Matthias. Yes, so I will open up the Q&A box, so you should be able to submit your questions there. You can also put them in the chat if you'd like as well. I was wondering, Matthias, if you could talk a little bit about some examples of supercurriculars, perhaps competitions and other things like that.
Yes, I mean, obviously, there are lots of things people could do. I think what is important to me is that it has sort of the research element, they themselves thinking into it. Say, if they're in the A-level system, EPQ could be a very good starting point, and they themselves really themselves into the problem. Or I mean, we are running a poster competition too, so
Yes.
poster competitions, that sort of thing.
Yes.
And I mean, I guess, when I was their age, basically, there was no internet. In fact, it was fairly limited, the resources we had. And, the only way of doing that sort of research was really going to a library and going through books. And obviously that's, great way of doing this too. But they have just so many more opportunities now. And, internet is great in many ways. Obviously, they also find a lot of rubbish, but then they will also develop the ability to distinguish, what is actually sort of real information and what is fake information, and that's also important. But if you want to engage in research, so doing that sort of own research, looking at sort of books and internet and all sorts of resources they can find, and as I said, this could be in the context of EPQs, of project work, research work. It could be internships, so it depends. I mean, if an internship is only a photocopy job, well, that's perhaps less of a research. But there are, I've seen students that have done very impressive internships too. But obviously, not everybody has access to that. Competition sometimes, even Olympiads would give people, that sort of thinking. But what is important for me is
I think Matthias has frozen for me.
it's really sort of thinking.
Oh, sorry, Matthias. I think you froze momentarily. Could you repeat what is important
Yes,
for you?
I think. Yes. So what is important to me is really sort of the research aspect, and they themselves really thinking themselves into it, and then really discussing with others, the interaction with others. I always tell my students, even when they prepare for exams, I always tell them, if you want to know that you actually really have understood the proof, present it to others, discuss it with others, stand up and talk loudly about this, because that's how life works, right? Interaction is always in that way. And interaction is not, on a piece of paper normally in front of you, and your boss doesn't come in and says, right, you've got 3 hours, solve this problem for me. It would be in conversation with others, and that's obviously also how we teach, that in conversation, in the supervisions. Obviously students hand in their work on paper, But the biggest aspect of our teaching model is really that, with your ideas, you come to the supervisions and you interact. And the earlier, they can start, doing that, the better. And that's why, for me, super curriculars, they have to have these elements, the research element, the thinking element, and the interaction
interactive element. Definitely. That's often, it answers the same question, the question about preparing for interviews as well, like learning to be familiar with talking about your subject out loud. It's something that you might not have had opportunity to do in the classroom. So I can't see any questions that have come in through the Q&A box. Oh yes, I can see something in the chat. What about the personal statement? So what are you looking for in a personal statement across maybe for different courses, arts, humanities, and STEM?
Yeah, and I think, whichever subject it is, the personal statement has to really reflect the passions, and the passions have to. So for me, I would say the personal statement is almost more important to the candidate than it actually is to us, because the candidate, when writing down their passions, they have to develop the passions. They can't just sort of make them up the evening before they submit the application. And developing their passions, this is a long process, and they have to be real passions. Very often, say, I see for mathematicians, I very often see they tell me, well, I always want to do maths. I like mathematics. They start in this way, which is, well, it's not a great start, but it's okay. But what worries me more is when they say, I love complex numbers, and the interviewer says, so tell me something about complex numbers, and they really know nothing about complex numbers. And so this was not sort of a real passion. It was just something they have maybe read about. And passion is more than just reading one page of a book. A passion is exactly what we said before. You go through exactly that process. You do your research, you think yourself into it, you develop understanding, you interact with others. That's how you develop your passions. And whenever I see that happening at interview, that people have these real passions, and very often I can see they are going to be extremely successful students. And the personal statement is really helping them to develop that. That's how I see it. That's their chance of actually thinking through, why this course, and how does that, how are my passions reflected in the course I want to embark on. And so it's important for them to really make that case and laid out clearly what they put down as a personal statement. And that, of course, is for us a very good starting point to where to start a discussion and how to start the interview. But as I said, it's not just important for us, it's almost even more important for the actual student.
I would say as well, we have the additional option of putting a Cambridge-specific personal statement. There's a character limit on that in the questionnaire that we send all Cambridge applicants, called My Cambridge Application. So sometimes, because they're applying for other courses at other universities that aren't exactly the same in the sense that they cover slightly different course areas compared with the Cambridge course, that can be a really useful thing for candidates to complete, that additional Cambridge-specific box on that questionnaire. But yeah, absolutely, I agree, Matthias. It's more of that helpful exercise, that tool for the candidate to actually, in a short amount of time, like one side of A4, talk about a few things in detail and really reflecting on what it is that they've done and why they find that interesting. Oh, I've seen something come in the chat box. So this person says, I work with a number of students from a range of education systems which teach in different ways and have different curricula at years 12 and 13 levels. What support is available to those who are admitted but might be missing the relevant content, especially for science-based degree courses?
In fact, all our courses start at a really sort of basic level, and I wouldn't be concerned about this. I mean, if they have that desire, if they have the ability to really sort of think for themselves, and all what we said before, these are sort of the qualities we want to see. our course obviously moved very quickly, but all as an example in my own course, um, some people will have seen, say, statistics, others will have seen nothing in statistics. Some will have seen a bit of probability, others have seen nothing, or some have seen no mechanics at all. And it really is no problem. The first year is very often there to bring everybody up to the same level. And obviously we accept students from lots of different educational systems, so it's really not a disadvantage if they have that passion and if they have that desire to really think for themselves and develop insight. And it really shouldn't be a problem that in certain educational systems, there was a focus on one area of the subject, and others the focus would be more on another area. At the end of the first year, that really, everybody should be up to the same level. And I see this in mathematics often, and I mean, surely in natural sciences, I've seen there too that, I mean, people come in and will have seen in one area more than others, but then there are other areas that they have seen less. So I don't really think that this is a problem.
And we would have that information, am I correct, in the additional questionnaire of exactly which modules they've covered?
Yes,
up to...
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. They can indeed declare this there, and that's very helpful for us
Yeah.
as the interviewers too.
Yeah. Perhaps we could talk a little bit about the opportunities for students while they're here, in particularly the long vacation. I think we've briefly mentioned internships, but about something you do as part of making a competitive application, but perhaps we can talk about them while they're undergraduates. Yeah.
Yes, and this, of course, something where we, particularly here at St. John's, feel really strongly about, because we have put years ago already, we put in, wholes of range of summer projects, research projects, internships. So I would say that our education is not just really limited to the 8 months of the term time. The college is actually very active also in the summer, and a lot of our students, they stay in the college for some weeks to do research. And when I say research, I mean sort of proper research project, not a lab experiment where you push a button, everybody knows what comes out at the other end. Here I'm really talking about working with one of your professors in the lab and really thinking about something perhaps nobody else in the world has thought about yet, and really helping within the research group, or just working with the professor and trying to solve a small problem perhaps, but a problem really nobody else really has really an idea yet. And giving even first and second year students that kind of access to that kind of project is extremely important. So years ago already, at least 10 years ago, the college, put in, funding schemes for summer projects. So we have the undergraduate research opportunities in the summer. We have summer bursaries. And one thing we should mention here is that we don't require our students to move out in the vacations. A lot of UK universities and a lot of Cambridge and Oxford colleges, they require their students to leave during the vacations. We don't do this. Our students can indeed, if they want, they can stay. Certainly in the short vacations, they actually don't have to vacate their rooms in the short vacations, as in lots of other places. But also in the long vacations, they can stay if they want to do project work. And we took that decision, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago. And that has really transformed actually the college, because now in the summer, our students have really access to all sorts of, project schemes that have developed. A lot of our students do, as I said, research projects in Cambridge, but then we also run various exchange programs. So 2 of our students, they go to Caltech in the summer to do research there. 2 of their students come to us. We work with National University in Singapore, for example, and 2 of our students go to NUS in the summer to do research there. 2 of their students come to us. Nagoya University in Japan, we exchange 6 students. Again, it's happening in the summer. So, because we have the facilities, we have access to the rooms and so on in the summer. That's why we can do that. So we are very supportive of these kind of opportunities, because when I think about, so what have my students done? And, lots of my students are actually quite, some are indeed very famous people now, and others have done, extremely well in their careers and so on. And if I really look at them, what was it that gave them really this sort of ability to do these great things? And obviously, the thinking for themselves and being creative and so on, this will be a big factor in that. The course will be a big factor, but very often it's other opportunities they had at the college, and it's this research project that perhaps when gave them sort of the aspiration to go in a certain area. Or just a few weeks ago, one of my students, he emailed me saying, I live in Tokyo now. And I said, how did you end up in Tokyo? And it was the exchange program we had with Nagoya University that really inspired him. He went to Nagoya for a few weeks and interacted with people there, built up, quite a big friendship group there. And, his first job, he initially thought he would get his first job in London, but he got it in Tokyo then. So it's very often, these kind of opportunities that, inspire students too. And yeah, St. John's, is very keen on offering these sorts of opportunities. And a lot of students also stay in the college, do internships, perhaps in the Science Park or in the Innovation Centre in Cambridge. I mean, we have our own innovation centre with, something like 90 startup companies there. And a lot of our students, intern with these companies and then perhaps, join that startup later on, or, start their own startup with some of our other students.
Thank you, Matthias. That was a great, really thorough answer. We've had a question asking about the additional Cambridge questionnaire. So I've just put that in the chat, the dedicated webpage that has guidance and information about my CAMAP, as it's called. We've also had a question about pre-college summer programs. So I suppose what I would say to that is that we do have residential programs for students who will be in for the summer of their year 12, so just before they're making the application, submitting to UCAS when they start their final year of study. So we could talk a little bit perhaps about our Women in Maths residential as an opportunity. So we run that in August.
Yes, so
no, go on, sorry.
Yeah, so sorry. So yeah, it had cut a little bit. So I hadn't realized that you had started already to talk about it. So it was in 2019 when we did this for the first time. And, this was an initiative we always wanted to do. And then 2019, we indeed launched it. Now, because of COVID, of course, then it didn't happen for 3 years. And then we restarted it last year. And this year we will do it for the third time. And it was fantastic. I mean, for 1 week, we had, was it 32 or 30? Yeah, I think 32 women in the college who were interested in mathematics, but not just the mathematics course. I mean, I think we sort of really say mathematical subjects. So, and, we should certainly count engineering and economics and, big parts of the sciences here too. Biological sciences too. I'm a strong believer that, we need a lot more mathematical knowledge in the biological sciences too. So, we have lectures around these areas I've just mentioned. What was great was we had also project work there. So, they engaged in project work, and even though time was short, it was just a week, but the presentations at the end were just fantastic. And I think here they were exposed to exactly what I said earlier. So to do some research, sort of really on their own, of course, with our guidance, and then, ending up with a presentation at the end of the week. And it was sort of, nice mathematical topics. They, had no idea about these things, before they started. And at the end of the week, they had made huge progress, really. And so a little EPQ done just in 1 week, and then final presentation in front of the big group and in front of us at the end. So it was really great.
And them getting to interact with current students as well, and also meeting
Yes.
each other and realizing that there were so many other girls their age across the world that were just as interested in figuring out maths problems. It was really wonderful to witness. And I'll pop an article from the college about that residential that we did this last summer. We've had a question from someone who joined partway through, but I don't think we've actually talked about 3 versus 4 A levels, that very common question. So would you like to address that?
Yes. So of course our offers will normally only be based on 3 A levels, and we don't normally base our offers on 4 A levels. Whether students should do 3 or 4, I mean, sometimes they have access only to 3, and it's a school policy that they can only do 3 A levels, and that's fine. I mean, that, you know, we will base our offers only on those 3. You know, if they're down to take 4 A levels, my personal view is that, you know, this is the chance for them to get a broad education, to get a broad school education. So if they can sustain taking 4 A levels, and you know, personally, I would very much support that. It's not required. We don't require for A levels, so they are not in a disadvantage if they have only 3. But of course, for their own benefit, for their own education, you know, if they can do 4, they personally, I would say they should do 4, particularly if they're saying the science they want to do maths and further maths. That takes already 2 choices away. And if they want to be scientists, well, I would really say they should take at least 2 sciences if they want to do natural science in Cambridge. So if they want to be, you know, a natural scientist that also does maths and further maths, that, you know, for their own benefit, I would say, well, they should definitely do 4 A levels. And so if they can sustain 4 A levels, and if they have access to 4 A levels, then I would say they should do that. Sometimes what happens is that we give, so somebody's down for 4 A levels, and we give our offers based on 3, and then they write back to us, can I drop my 4th A level? And the answer is yes, you can. I mean, the contract, you know, requires them only to do 3 A levels and not 4. Personally, I find this a bit sad, because, you know, the fact that we give an offer only on 3 A levels then resulted in them limiting their education. Now, I understand why this question, of course, comes up, because, you know, they feel that limiting themselves to 3 A levels, then they have higher chances getting the grades we require. I'm not sure I would always agree with that. Sometimes I would, but not always, because, you know, it's the busy people that are normally also successful people, and there's synergy effects as well. And I very often feel the candidates, you know, they really put what they learn into these boxes. Oh, this is physics, this is mathematics, this is chemistry, and they're not able, you know, to use something they have learned in physics and mathematics. But that's exactly what we want to see, that they understand, that they see this pattern there, what I've learned there is applicable there. So sometimes it is actually really beneficial to, you know, have this broader education and to see these links. So I know this was a long answer and doesn't actually give you a clear answer. You know, to summarize, if they do only 3 A levels, they're not in any disadvantage whatsoever. Personally, I think it is better for their own education to do 4 A levels if they can, and if this doesn't really sort of harm their sort of 3 core A levels, then I personally prefer that they do 4, but they're not in any disadvantage if they take 3.
We would be able to talk through with the candidate if they wanted to email us or ring us. Any college admissions office as well would be able to discuss their specific sort of subject profile.
Yeah, perhaps I can just add
Please.
here that I'm a big fan of the EPQ. I mentioned this earlier already, but if we talk about 3 or 4, we should mention the EPQ as well. And I very much support them doing an EPQ if they can.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could talk about financial support, maybe specifically some of the scholarships that we have, and the central funding body for international students as well. I don't think we've talked much at this point.
Yes, there are various funding schemes available. I mean, one thing that is important to know is that for us, the application and funding applications, these are really separate things. So we do not want that interviewers or the admission system sees the financial information, because we think it's inappropriate that interviewers would actually see how much money does this candidate have? That it's just not right that interviewers take academic decisions, and they should not look at financial background at all. So these are independent processes. But once you have an offer, then depending on subject or area in the world where you're from, there will be various funding schemes that you're available that would be available for you to apply. The University, the Cambridge Trusts, they have various schemes you can apply for, but the college also has various schemes. So we have one scheme in Singapore, one scheme in Hong Kong. Then we have also St. John's bursaries that could close of smaller shortfalls. We have one scholarship specific for French students. We have two scholarships there, actually, very special scholarships. So one of them is the Qatar Harrison Scholarship, and this is for women with entrepreneurial interests, entrepreneurial and interdisciplinary interests. And this is funded by an alum of the college, entrepreneur herself from Singapore. And it's not just about the money. Obviously, you can win money to help you fund the degree, but it's also about being part of a community and being part, of a group of women that have sort of these interests, and also have, the people who fund the scholarship to help you really, as a group, to come closer to these ambition. And we have a very similar scheme, the THU bursary, which is for men and women with leadership ambition. And I think here you can win something like £10,000 a year. And again, it's not just the money, it's about also, being part of the community. And in fact, just yesterday evening for that particular scholarship scheme, we had a dinner where, the donors of the scheme, as well as, previous scholars, came back to the college. And interacted, in a very lively way, what they're doing now, and also help each other in their leadership ambition. So there are various schemes, but as I said, it's independent from the admissions process. So you first apply, get a place, and then you apply for the scholarship or bursary schemes you think you would be eligible for.
Thank you, Matthias. Yeah, excuse me, a really important distinction that you've made there. Thank you. I can't see any further questions in the Q&A box, or one's just popped up. There we go. For courses at Cambridge where a related subject at our local high school qualification level is not available, e.g. law, this is a good question. Is there a general rule of thumb which you would give regarding their subject choices, or are the specific choices irrelevant as long as the results are good? Okay, so I think law is a really good example for this, isn't it, Matthias? Because actually A-level law and lots of other high school qualifications and subjects where you study that at school is very unlike a university, a Cambridge degree in law. Would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. So obviously it really depends on the subject. I mean, I can't imagine, admitting a mathematician without having done mathematics at school. So, in mathematics that wouldn't be possible. But I hear very often say for example, also economists saying that A-level economics is not necessarily sort of the most important subject for them. Actually, mathematics is a lot more important. And, there would be lots of subjects, and I would imagine law exactly the same, where sort of the analytical thinking, the desire to think for yourself or whatever is a lot more important than having done the exact subject. But obviously it will depend on the actual subject. Many years ago, I actually did a study and looking at which subject students had done and how this correlated to sort of success in Cambridge and exam success. And it was interesting that in most of the humanities subjects, a subject that sort of shows your sort of analytical and writing skills was very important, but it didn't have to be the exact subject. So as an example, if you wanted to do, say, English literature, success in history, for example, may also prove that, you're perfect to do English literature. It didn't actually have to be English literature. It had to be, a subject-based, essay-based subjects, and you had to demonstrate your writing skills, but not necessarily in the exact subject. In the sciences, it was quite different. In the sciences, the correlation of success was very often that, success in almost all the sciences, proof. So, the more success you had in science subjects, the better. Yes, so yes, it doesn't necessarily have to be the exact subject. I think I hear from the computer scientists also quite often that A-level computer science is not necessarily the required preparation to study computer science, and again, mathematical skills are probably extremely important there too.
There's a really good resource, as well as what I hope will be useful, that I've linked in the chat for specifically law and economics, because these are really good examples that Matthias has drawn out there. The Subject Matters PDF is really useful for going through the different subject combinations for both arts and humanities, social sciences and STEM courses, and sort of how we would recommend students to make those subject choices. And also I will link in the follow-up email all of the accepted qualifications list as well. We have a useful webpage that goes through all international and UK qualifications, and that should be helpful as well with these considerations about picking subjects. Keeping an eye on the Q&A box in the chat to see if we have any further questions. I will put the admissions office email in the chat here. So if there were any further questions that you had, indeed ones that you wanted to pass on to Matthias about something that he specifically mentioned, then please do send us an email and we'll get back to you about that. I'll just wait to see if anyone's finishing up a question. Well, I think we'll draw the session to an end. Thank you so much, Matthias, for your insight and your guidance. And thank you very much for all of the fantastic questions. I will send a follow-up email with these links and the recording of this session.
Okay, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.